Thailand's prime minister is seeking measured talks with Myanmar's military rulers, a move that could shape stability and refugee flows across Southeast Asia. This is Omni View, episode 133. Thailand's prime minister has urged a calibrated approach to re-engaging with Myanmar's military leadership ahead of a planned meeting with Senior General Aung Hlaing. The statement signals an intent to balance security concerns with diplomatic channels. The move comes as Myanmar's internal conflict continues to affect neighboring countries through displacement and cross-border issues. Reuters reporting specifies that the Prime Minister described the re-engagement as calibrated, indicating a deliberate pace rather than rapid normalization. Reuters reporting frames the proposal as a pragmatic step by Thailand to manage regional security and migration pressures that directly touch its borders. Some regional observers see the approach as an attempt to prevent further spillover while testing whether limited contact can produce concrete outcomes on issues such as border stability. Human rights groups argue that any engagement risks lending legitimacy to the military authorities without clear safeguards for civilians. The factual ground is that Thailand shares a long border with Myanmar and has already hosted large numbers of people displaced by the conflict. Interpretations differ on whether dialogue or isolation better serves long-term stability. Reuters notes the upcoming meeting with Aung Hlaing as the immediate context for the remarks. The meeting itself will test whether the calibrated tone produces any early agreements on practical border matters. Shifting now to India, young protesters forced the resignation of a cabinet minister through a campaign they called Cockroaches. The demonstrations highlighted public frustration with certain government messaging and achieved a direct political result. AP reporting states that India's Gen Z movement of cockroaches dented Modi's political image through sustained action. AP reporting presents the outcome as evidence that coordinated youth action can produce measurable political consequences in India's system. Supporters of the protests view the resignation as a sign that public pressure can still influence cabinet-level decisions. Critics within the ruling coalition see the events as an overreaction to online campaigns that may not reflect broader voter sentiment. The shared fact is that the minister stepped down following sustained demonstrations. The disagreement centers on whether this reflects healthy accountability or the outsized influence of social media mobilization. AP links the victory explicitly to the cockroaches branding used by the young protesters. The episode has drawn attention to generational shifts in political participation, with further protests already planned in several states. In South Korea, SK Hynix and its union have opened discussions over bonus pay. The talks address compensation structures at one of the world's major semiconductor manufacturers. Both sides are seeking to resolve the issue without disrupting production. Reuters notes that the discussions focus on how recent performance should translate into worker payments. Labor representatives emphasize that workers should share in the gains from strong chip demand. Company officials stress the need to keep overall costs competitive in a global market where margins can shift quickly. The undisputed element is that formal talks have started. The difference lies in how each side weighs immediate worker compensation against longer-term investment needs. Reuters identifies SK Hynix as the specific firm involved in the current round of talks. Negotiators expect an agreement within the next several weeks. Pass rates for Scottish exams increased compared with the previous year as students received their results. Education authorities recorded the improvement across multiple qualification levels. The data reflect performance in the current academic cycle. BBC reporting indicates the rise occurred as students collected their results on the scheduled release date. BBC reporting presents the rise as a return toward pre-pandemic patterns in assessment outcomes. Some education analysts attribute the change to adjustments in teaching support and exam conditions. Others caution that year-on-year comparisons remain complicated by changes in assessment methods introduced during earlier disruptions. The clear fact is the recorded increase. Views differ on how much weight to give temporary versus structural factors in the results. BBC coverage includes live updates on the exact pass rate figures released that day. Authorities will release detailed breakdowns by subject in the coming days. The Economist's Big Mac Index, which compares burger prices across countries to illustrate currency values, has reached its 40th year. The measure continues to offer a simple way to track how far exchange rates deviate from purchasing power parity. Recent data still show wide gaps between currencies. The publication's interactive tool allows users to compare any currency against the dollar using current burger prices. The publication's own analysis treats the index as a durable, accessible illustration of exchange rate theory rather than a precise forecasting tool. Economists who favor it note that it captures real price differences consumers experience. Skeptics point out that the single product basket cannot fully reflect broader cost structures or trade patterns. The common ground is that the index has run continuously since 1986 and remains publicly available for comparison. The Economist highlights Brazil's 1990s hyperinflation episode, where the price of a Big Mac rose from 3,800 cruzeiros to 77,000 cruzeiros in a single year, as one historical snapshot captured by the index. The index will mark the milestone with updated global comparisons released this week. Studies are examining whether red light therapy, already used for certain eye and skin conditions, can help with Alzheimer's disease and ADHD. Early findings suggest potential effects on cellular energy and inflammation. Further trials are needed to confirm benefits and safety. The Economist reports that eye and skin experts have applied the method for age-related decline for years. Newer research teams are testing applications in neurology and psychiatry. Some clinicians remain cautious until larger controlled studies are completed, while others see the existing safety record as a reason to accelerate investigation. The established use in specific medical fields is not in dispute. The debate concerns the strength of evidence for newer proposed uses. The article notes emerging data on ailments ranging from Alzheimer's to ADHD. Researchers expect initial trial results within the next year. Now, some progress worth knowing about. Creative reuse centers are collecting donated art materials and selling them at reduced prices to keep usable items out of landfills. The centers operate in multiple locations and serve both individual crafters and community programs. Donations from households and businesses supply the inventory. AP coverage states that the centers sell used ribbons, fabric scraps, and other supplies at a discount rather than requiring full new purchases. AP coverage describes the model as a practical route to lower waste volumes while providing affordable materials. Participants note that the approach reduces the need to buy new supplies for small projects. Operators acknowledge that collection and sorting still require steady volunteer and staff effort. The measurable element is the ongoing sale of previously discarded materials at discounted rates. AP emphasizes that donating used supplies allows neighbors to access materials they might otherwise discard. The centers continue to open new locations in additional cities. Now, to really understand this story, there is something most coverage leaves out. Most people assume exchange rates simply reflect trade balances or central bank policy. Yet the Big Mac Index reveals a different layer: how much a standardized basket of goods actually costs in local currency. The index works by comparing the price of one McDonald's Big Mac across countries and then checking whether that price matches the official exchange rate. If a burger costs far more in one place after conversion, the local currency is considered overvalued on a purchasing power basis. This approach draws on the economic idea of purchasing power parity, which holds that identical goods should cost the same everywhere once exchange rates adjust. Over 4 decades, the index has repeatedly shown large and persistent gaps, especially in emerging markets where non-traded costs such as rent and labor differ sharply. One concrete illustration appears in the 1990s Brazilian data, where the local currency price of the same burger jumped from 3,800 cruzeiros to 77,000 cruzeiros in a single year before the currency was retired. Knowing this mechanism helps readers see why a headline about a cheap or expensive currency often rests on more than export data alone. When coverage cites the index, check whether the story also mentions adjustments for taxes, local wages, or non-traded services that the simple burger price cannot capture. A reader can verify the latest figures directly on The Economist's interactive tool and compare any two currencies side by side. If you want to go deeper on the Thai Prime Minister's remarks, compare how Reuters and AP are covering today's lead story. Tomorrow, watch for updates on whether the SK Hynix talks produce an agreement before the next earnings cycle. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best informed people read more than one perspective, and the calmest ones know that most days, somewhere, something is quietly getting better. For full source links, check out today's written briefing on the Omni View Summaries page. Share this with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow, and if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at NARA Network. Links in the show notes. One more thing, if you liked today's episode, our sister show, Modern Investing Techniques, is worth a spot in your feed. Modern strategies for Canadian and U.S. investors. It's one of the NARA Network's daily briefings, all free at naranetwork.com. Live dashboards, TSLA, SpaceX launches, the investing scoreboard are all at naranetwork.com data. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.